here's like some things that I want to discuss right now, right? You can't do that with a zombie. You're like, hey, Mr. Zombie, he's just coming at you, right? You can't be like, hold up, wait, we're going to have a discussion right now, right? And sure, you could run into an unreasonable vampire, but at least have a brain.
He could sneak up on you.
Yeah.
Sink those fangs right in your neck.
Yeah, and it's not as gross. You're not getting like ripped apart.
You know those fangs have like little tubes in them, and the vampires don't even drink the blood. It just goes. It's like a little straw, in the tooth.
Welcome back.
Hello, everybody. What's going on? This is episode 4, Not Your Mother's Podcast.
Or your father's.
There's a lot of things this isn't. We're cousins, but we're not your cousin.
No. And you're not our cousin. Or maybe you are. We don't know. You could be
and
our cousin.
We don't really know, because we could be related, but it's likely that we're not. It doesn't mean we can't be friends and we can't hang out. It's just we got to let you know what's going on.
And it doesn't mean this podcast isn't for you, because I mean, it's called Not Your Cousin's Podcast for a reason. Sure, we're not your cousin, but it can still be your podcast. You can still enjoy, You
can love and support us and share your thoughts with us and tell us what you think in the comments, because kind of excited to see what people are thinking of this once it starts to roll out,
Definitely.
Okay, so last week we did a segment called kind of like Hot or Not, or kind of like
what's better, right? What thing is
this or that, machetes or katanas. So this week each of us have a topic, and I'm gonna throw mine your way. I'll also answer it. So there's some mythical creatures out there sometimes, and they're similar in a lot of ways, but also very different. So is it zombies or is it vampires?
Oh, that's a difficult one. Let's see. Like, are we talking which one I would rather be in a room with? Which one I'd rather be? What direction are we going?
Which one's better?
Which one's better?
You got to choose one.
Like, because I feel like better can mean two different things. Like, better can mean like I'd rather be this, or I'd rather face off with this. Or
just the one you like. Just the one you like and appreciate the most.
Which one I like and appreciate the most?
Yeah.
I think. And now, if I had to be friends with either a zombie or a vampire...
No. You're just watching a film, or you have to... We're just talking about the pros and the cons here. So,
the pros and the cons, okay.
Like, zombies. They hang out in large groups. Vampires. Sometimes people think they're sexy. Vampires are pale. Sometimes they could look like regular humans. Zombies can't look like regular humans. Vampires could speak. Zombies can't. Both of them, if they bite somebody, in most cases, they're turning into one of those groups. So that's when I was saying they were similar, that's what I was talking about.
Okay, true. I think zombies are more, they're more terrifying to me, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Like, just because, like, the way that they look, number one, makes them more scary.
Sure.
Number two, you can't reason with them, right? Like, at least with a vampire, you could, like, propose a conversation and be like, look, here's, like, some things that I want to discuss right now, right? You can't do that with a zombie. You're like, hey, Mr. Zombie, he's just coming at you, right? You can't be like, hold up, wait, we're going to have a discussion right now, right? And sure, you could run into an unreasonable vampire, but at least have a brain.
He could sneak up on you.
Yeah.
Sink those fangs right in your neck.
Yeah, and it's not as gross. You're not getting, like, ripped apart.
You know those fangs have, like, little tubes in them, and the vampires don't even drink the blood. It just goes... It's like a little straw, in the tooth. I agree with the zombies being more terrifying and less reasonable. that almost makes them like better.
Yeah.
Like if we're talking about like the best kind of villain or kind of a foe for people to fight against. You know what I'm saying? Like if you want to have an epic film, or you want to have somebody who's super qualified in kind of combat of all sorts with guns, weapons, all sorts of stuff, like you want them to go up against the best opponent. So in that case, do you think zombies are a harder opponent or vampires are a harder opponent?
I would say that it's harder to kill a vampire, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's more numbers in zombies. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
easier to kill a zombie, but there's also like, of course they're stupider, right? So they can't like plan and like do stuff. But there's more
Sure.
of them, and the thought of them is a bit more terrifying, in a way, because the way that they'll kill you is they eat you. Like they're shredding you apart. At least the vampire just like doop doop, and then that's it, right? It's like it's
Yeah.
more dignified versus someone just tearing you up.
Sure.
And it's almost more in a way like I don't think they could have made Walking Dead with vampires. It wouldn't be the same show.
No.
And there's not many good really vampire shows. They add other mythical creatures to like compensate.
Sure. That's a great point.
They exist in like
Werewolves.
a different universe. Yeah.
They throw in like even Hotel Transylvania's got all sorts of crazy other stuff. Yeah, so maybe kind of a counter to that is vampires might be able to conspire with each other, come up with a plan for kind of world domination. But when you see vampire movies, it's not necessarily like you said, like world domination. They're not spreading out to like take over the whole earth usually. But in zombie movies, like everybody turns into a zombie except for like 6 people.
Yeah. With vampires, they need a source of blood, right? Like they can't kill off everybody. They know this.
Sure.
The zombies, they don't really even need to eat people. They just strangely have this like desire to just anybody that they see, they're just like, I gotta go after that person. Vampires are more
Yeah.
like, okay, at night I'll choose like one person or something, but we can't go crazy in the town. We got to keep suspicions down low.
Sure.
The humans have to exist, but
They think too much to be like an all-powerful force. Like the zombies just don't give a fuck and they're just eating everybody. And I think this is kind of interesting. There's a lot of zombie movies and most people know what a zombie is, even though it's not a real thing, right?
yeah.
So did somebody come up with that idea? Like it seems sort of realistic
Yeah.
in a way. Like I'm not really sure about that, but they have like werewolves are like that and unicorns. So like it's interesting how something can be so prevalent even though it's not it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it is really interesting because I feel like they have different roots too. Like vampires go back a long time. Like they've been a mythological creature for like, I mean, longer than zombies. They go back
Yeah,
like
hundreds
even, like,
of years.
Yeah, like Count Dracula, like was like he wasn't actually a vampire, but like the whole like mythical kind of like
Like Phantom of the Opera, is that what you're talking about?
no, like the guy, he was Romanian, I believe, or
Okay.
it was like Wallachia back then or something.
Okay.
And he used to be he was a big count there, and he became like I can't remember the name of their like supreme like leader back then.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow, and I'm not like an expert on like how it happened, but somehow Count Dracula, it became like a name that and he was a pretty
I've heard
crazy
of
dude,
of Count Dracula for sure.
yeah. It's like he did like a ton of like just like kind of like atrocity type events. Like he was really like brutal with his enemies. So I guess they just kind of were like, he's a freaky dude, and they were kind of like vampire. I don't know how
Sure,
it happened.
and I think over
but-
the course of history, some people believed that vampires were real. Like whether it was people emerging from the grave as vampires or people getting lost in the middle of the night, I think people actually believed in them. I don't think people actually believe that zombies are real. And actually, like people end up believing in ghosts and kind of ghouls and kind of, like they believe those are actually real as versus zombies. I don't think people actually think zombies are real.
Yeah, because I mean they'd be so they'd be somewhere. You'd have to see them, right? Like vampires are more like stealthy, right? Same with werewolves. Like they all kind of blend in with society.
Mm-hmm.
But vampires, it's like if you're not seeing them,
You mean zombies?
I mean zombies, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not seeing them, they can't possibly be hiding. There's no
Sure.
like zombie coalition that
Sure.
somehow.
So it's easier to believe in something if part of believing in that means that you probably wouldn't see them. And like personally, like maybe ghosts are real. Like I'm not really sure. We don't really know how this world interfaces with like, you know, or what happens in the space where our senses don't pick up what's going on. Because if you think about it, like there's a certain wavelength of light, like there's a certain section of light that we're able to see with our eyes. Same, there's a different section with our ears, and maybe touch is a little bit more reliable. But even with our nose, like there's things dogs can smell that we can't smell. So I think it's like definitely possible that there are things going on that we can't sense and therefore we don't believe in. And that doesn't mean that like anything you can imagine is real. And it also doesn't mean that specifically ghosts are real. I think it's just probable that there's something that's existing in that empty space, and it's only empty space because we can't necessarily like, we can't sense it. We just have these 5 like mainstream senses, and then there's like some other like subgenres of senses. Like you can sense your body in space. Like you have an awareness of your like your limbs moving around. That's, some people would say that's a sense. But there's some like just the sensory organs. It's just picking up some of it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It is strange to think that there's a lot of things we don't know about out there. I definitely like to keep my mind open because like science even is such like a manipulable kind of thing where it's like it changes over time because you can't possibly know everything that exists in one given point in time. You're always learning more stuff. So yeah, it's interesting to think about how much we'll learn over the years, like looking to the future, kind of thinking what else is going to happen. Will we discover some new property that's going on around us that we never knew existed, or maybe we'll never discover it? I mean, it's
and sort of speaking of science, we do create scientific instruments that have senses that we don't have. Like we have like an MRI machine, and I don't really know what that does, but I know it like scans the body and it creates like a sort of like a heat map of what's going on in your body. And then there's like EKGs, and there's all these other sensory things that we're using technology to view, and then we're converting that information into something that we can sense, right? So like things we can usually just see. For example, one of those things is they have instruments that can pick up higher frequency sounds than we can hear, and then somehow convert them into lower frequency sounds. So like bat calls, bats, vampires kind of in the same vein here. They can pick up bat calls, which human ears cannot hear. And something interesting about bat calls is each individual bat has a unique call. And so what they used to have to do before this instrument was created was they used to have to capture a bunch of bats in a specific area to figure out how many of them live there. But now they don't have to capture bats because that's not very humane. I mean, taking any animal out of their natural habitat, I don't think is humane. Zoos, whatever, like SeaWorld and stuff. But now they just go in there with the instrument, and then they record for a few hours, and they count how many individual bat calls there are. So these bats have been calling since they existed. We're walking through the forest, we don't hear it. It's still there.
Yeah.
And another thing about bats is like the heaviest bat is only like 3 pounds.
Really?
And they can have, maybe they're 4 or 5 pounds, but they have some of them have like a 6 foot wingspan. And their bats are different than birds because birds have hollow bones, but bats just have really thin bones, and they just arch down into the wings and stuff. It's kind of like a flying mouse in a lot of ways. But fascinated by bats.
Sounds like
I don't know why.
they need to drink more milk. Maybe that's where the vampires have gone wrong. Maybe they don't like the light because they're just they have so many like nutrient deficiencies.
Yeah, dude, that's a great point.
They can't go outside.
We could like make a film about that, of like the only reason I wouldn't make a film about that is because I find the idea is bad.
Yeah, like the whole film would be really awful.
No, like I think we could find a narrative in there of like one of the vampires discovering milk, him being ostracized because he's drinking something that's not blood. We could find a narrative in there, but I think it's just weird to drink any milk that's not, from the breast. Like almond milk, it's not even milk.
I don't even know how they make almond
cashew
milk.
not even milk. Coconut milk.
It's liquid that comes out of a coconut. It's like a juice. It's not milk. But anyway,
just to clear up this whole segment first, you're not advocating that like people who like to drink cow's milk should switch to breast milk as adults. Like as a baby, I think it's like a different thing. But then it becomes. I think the reason why it becomes weird is like eventually we reach this stage in human development, and I don't know how it happened, but somehow the tits have become sexual. So for people who see that, like, then it becomes a whole thing, because then it's like, I don't want to drink milk from something that I see as a sexual, like, that is like sexual to me, right? So I think like it becomes difficult, like, to make that.
Yeah. So absolutely, I'm not saying for any adults to drink milk. I'm not trying to say that children shouldn't drink, breast milk. And there may be some nutrients in there that adults could benefit from. It may just be culturally, it may be a hard thing to sort of accept. I wouldn't advocate for adults drinking directly off of a recently pregnant woman's boob ever. There just may be like, they pump, but there may be a factory or something where they.
Who's gonna make this milk like voluntarily? Who's gonna like?
There's got to be some leftovers.
Do they just send it into the factory? Like they'd have to preserve it?
I think they'd just be hired, and it would be kind of like kind of a human version of how they do cows right now. They're not like, I'm not saying like they would fill humans with all these hormones to make their bodies believe that they're pregnant to produce milk. I'm not saying that, but that would be like they'd get compensated for it.
I feel like there wouldn't be enough of a supply to go around.
Dude, how many pregnant women are there? It would just be like,
Probably
it's like Uber drivers. They don't have to be Uber drivers for that long, but in that pregnancy window, they could go to the factory, and they would have like a whole kind of like, if they recently had a child and they need to like bring their child into work, they would support that at the factory. It wouldn't be like. It'd be a welcoming place for children, and they would have toys, and they would have, intermingling between the children. Maybe they'd have even like a school there.
What if there was a milk shortage then? Like, what if people didn't want to go to this factory and they only got like half volunteers, let's say? Then you're looking at a milk shortage, and people are going to be like, how the hell are we supposed to get all this milk that we need to, accommodate the people who want milk? And then you have to be like, hey ladies, does anyone want to come to the factory? And then you maybe got to pay them more. I don't know. Maybe there's strikes. Maybe some are like, I don't want to work at the milk factory.
Especially because health is like, it's a booming industry right now. I think that if it was marketed correctly as a high performance, hyper nutrient dense product, that the demand would be there, and therefore the compensation for donating your breast milk would be it'd be really valuable for these women to participate. And not to lose sight of my original point of it being strange that we're doing this, drinking this thing that's meant for baby cows. We now ingest that. So
It tastes good though.
I don't give a shit what it tastes like.
And nobody has ever like sexualized the
Dude, people
what do you call that? The udder. No one's ever like sexualized the udder.
Oh, dude,
versus the
personally, I
breasts.
don't have a problem with it coming from a breast or not. Like a pregnant woman isn't like they're not supposed to be like a sexual object, because not that women are objects at all, but like it's not supposed to be a sexual thing because they're not in a space of being able to reproduce. Like if that's the foundation of why we find things sexual.
But a tit itself is sexual.
You don't have to see it. You don't have to see it.
I know
It's
it,
just
but
strange
you know,
though, dude.
In your
So
mind, you're like,
listen.
you're thinking.
This substance that's mass produced in a potentially unethical way is meant for growing baby cows into something they're hundreds of pounds large. Okay, 500-600 pound animals, and it's specifically catered towards growing this baby calf into a full grown cow. So I don't know how the hormones work, and I don't understand it very well. But if you take that, now you're ingesting it in your body, and biologically it was honed in and it was created specifically for growing this baby cow into a large cow. It may and those hormones may have a specific effect on how your body functions.
I definitely don't agree with the hormones or like the unethical raising of cows. I don't like any of that. But
Yeah.
Cow's milk is good, and you make ice cream with it. You put it in your coffee. That's a big one for me. I like, I put a little bit of milk.
Yeah, dude,
in
and
my
they have all
coffee
these
or a
milk
creamer
substitutes
or
out there.
They do, but there's something about just like milk, like an ice cream. It's just something about the properties of that specific milk.
Sure.
Then your brain starts going.
Just like anything. And we'll be right back.
And we're back.
Yeah, so dude, like just because it tastes good doesn't mean it's good for you. And I just can't get over the fact that it's growing baby cows, and there's two things about the hormones. There's the fact that the female cows are given hormones so their bodies believe they're pregnant for a long period of time, years, when that should only be happening, I think, for cows for a few months at a time. So that fact is unethical and probably affects the quality of the milk. And additionally, the hormones naturally that are in the milk, which are meant to change the biology of the animal ingesting it, is now going into hundreds of millions of people's bodies.
I agree. That's very bad. That's a very bad thing. The thing is that can't we just, like, let's not do all this, right? Like, I don't like this either. I don't like what we're doing.
Yeah.
But can't we just have a little taste of that milk?
Dude, if it's ethically raised, 100%.
Okay, then I don't have a problem. I think we should ethically raise our milk. And if people want to have breast milk, that's fine.
Yes.
I think I'm going to stick to the cow's milk because it has qualities that I like in coffee. I don't think I would put breast milk in my coffee or make an ice cream out of breast milk.
Well, listen. Unless you've tried it, how are you going to say what you're going to do? Have you tried breast milk after the age of 3?
No. I guess I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know.
But would you be comfortable like sipping that breast milk? Like it would be, you got to admit, it would be a little bit weird the first time because you'd have this mental block where you'd be like, because when you think of milk, you think of the udder, right? You don't really
I don't drink milk. And number one, I was just, here's this liquid that comes in this rectangular box or in this jug. People drink this. There's commercials about this. Chris Paul has a milk mustache and he's on the milk commercials, and I'm not thinking about where it comes from. Just like when you go and you purchase a steak, you're not thinking, oh, this part of the cow and this is what I'm gonna eat. It's just like, oh, do you want fajitas tonight? Oh, remember when everyone around me when I was growing up ate fajitas, and then I just eat it. I'm not thinking about what it actually is.
I mean, I'm not thinking about that either. But when something says breast milk on it,
yeah,
right?
maybe
like cow's milk,
we would brand it a little bit better, you know, like super nutrient milk, you know.
what if you're lying to them? What if it's like, well, you could drink any other milk, but
I would just call it super milk.
super milk.
In one word. And it would come in smaller containers, right? We're not pumping out gallons and gallons of this stuff.
Breast milk would have to be somewhere on that box for like clarification purposes. If someone wanted to know,
and on the package, it wouldn't say breast milk. It would say this milk was ethically produced and extracted from humans.
couldn't we do that for cows?
Yeah, but dude, the hormones still.
We'll get rid of the hormones.
No. The
is what I'm
hormones,
saying.
like literally, what's in, like even for humans or any animal, what's in the breast milk, those nutrients, and there's also hormones in there. It's not something that humans made. It's something about actually the way that nature works. These hormones are in there to affect the physiology of the animal that is intaking them as a child, and it's meant to help them grow, and grow specifically in the way that animal is supposed to grow.
Yeah, I think the way that we're raising those animals is wrong. I think we need to move to an ethical like way to get meat.
But
to get
but
milk,
not everyone's going to get milk if we do it in an ethical way.
because there won't be enough.
There's not going to be enough.
I agree that we need to also lower our consumption of like meat products and try to find alternative ways to sustain ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm trying to use the word like a lot less. I noticed in like previous I was like, oh no.
Dude, I was saying
watched back
like
footage.
and I was saying a lot.
Yeah.
And I was
It was
saying
bad
kind of, and I was saying like all of those. That's fine.
Yeah, but it was so bad for me. Like I watched
You
like
just
the
said
first
it.
episode and like previous
Two.
footage that we recorded, like we were editing.
Yeah.
And I just every time I hear like a like, I'm just like it bombards me. It's too much.
Yeah.
I can't take it.
See, like saying and stuff. It's sometimes if we're just talking so much, and we're wanting to say something, and we can't perfectly formulate how to say it, but we have to say something, and we're gonna try our best. Having all those filler words in there makes it easier to try to string together the ideas.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I use it as a filler.
yeah, for sure.
If I have a pause, I don't want it to be awkward, so I try to
Yeah.
just throw whatever word.
It shouldn't be awkward. Like, it shouldn't be awkward. Like, it isn't unless you allow it to as the speaker to be awkward. So if you say it and then you're like shit, I shouldn't say it, then your whole mind like collapses, and then you're not able to say what you're trying to say.
I'm trying to get better though about stuff like that, because like it was used so much, like it's too much of a filler word. I gotta like either find some other words I can throw in there, or just let the pause kind of like again. See, I did.
But
it
like,
again.
what else
I
would
gotta let
would you say? Let the pause, something, do something like.
just let the pause sit, you know?
I know, but sometimes it's not just a fill, it's actually like a transition. So sometimes you could just say something, pause, it's in the middle of a sentence, and then you like end up switching on to a different idea. It's easy, and it's something you don't want to fall back on, but it actually has a place also. It's not all bad.
No, it's not all bad. I just don't want to rely on it too much.
Sure.
And kind of like, again, not
Yeah,
be like,
and we can
so
get
much.
we can get over it, because it's gonna happen. Like we haven't solved that problem yet, so it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep a mental note about it so I can kind of curb my behavior. Not my behavior, but like kind of
And you
just get
and
to
maybe
the point where I
maybe you're
don't
starting to
have
use
to-
kind of instead of like, and you can get used to these different things, and then there's and there's and stuff. That's just part of it. People do that so much more, but when it's you watching yourself, maybe we have a different perception of what's going on, and we also we want to improve ourselves, and when we're watching ourselves back in these episodes, we want to watch them, learn from ourselves, and then also figure out how to do it in a more efficient and effective way, especially like the way we want it to go instead of how it's been going,
Yeah. The likes in that first episode, that was just
You mean the babies that got back fuck Tim's chips episode?
yeah.
Yeah.
There was so many just coming out of my mouth all the time. It was just like. In one sentence, I counted I think 6 likes at one point, and I was like, "This is enough. This is too much."
As we're starting out, we need more likes on our videos anyway. So I mean, you're helping us out.
There we go. That's what I was saying. Like the video,
Subliminal messaging. Now we don't even have to try to fix that or do anything. Just like that, like the episode.
Just like it.
And if you don't like it, that's cool. Let us know. Tell us how we could be better. Suggest any kind of segments or maybe some challenges that we could do. I heard about this one spicy chip challenge. You seen that?
No, I haven't.
It's like a Dorito, but it's like extra spicy. So it's an
Oh.
individual package with one Dorito in there. It's not from Doritos, but it's like a corn chip with a bunch of bullshit on it. The
Spicy powder. Yeah, a little spice.
yeah, so it's like that, but it's like the spiciest peppers ground up and put on there. So we could do the chip challenge. We could do, just eating jalapenos, just regular jalapenos. Or submit any kind of challenge, the cinnamon challenge.
That can be dangerous. There was a dude who was it cinnamon or was it some other spice? But he took a ton of it, right? He put it into a smoothie, and he drank the whole thing, and he got super ill.
Yeah, super ill. That's tight, dude.
Yeah, it is pretty
he's
tight.
sick.
And he drank so much water, because it makes you think that you're thirsty. Mm-hmm. He was just pounding water.
That's terrible.
Then he has to go to the emergency room, and they're like, "Holy shit, you drank too much water." And they're like, "You can't pee now because you have so much water in your system, and the cinnamon or whatever spice it was that you consumed is making it so you can't pee."
It wasn't cinnamon. That's absurd, and most people need to drink more water. Some people, it's possible to die from drinking too much water.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
What was happening? What was I saying before this?
You were saying submit challenges.
Submit challenges. So the cinnamon challenge is you eat a teaspoon of cinnamon, and it soaks up water so much that you're not able to swallow the cinnamon because you can't produce enough saliva to make the cinnamon wet, and then you just end up coughing up all the cinnamon. But there was another thing about water challenges. Cinnamon challenge. Water we could do a challenge where we try to drink 40 or 60 ounces of water as fast as we can.
Would be healthy to a certain point. I mean,
it kind of does hurt your stomach, but I don't think I would place in the world record books or anything. But just in general, I'm drinking 180, 200 ounces a day. A gallon, 1 gallon jug, 128 ounces.
Damn.
Pour one of those daddies out, and then you have another. You hit them with a 60 ounce right here. That's where I'm at usually on a daily basis. So in terms of the average, I'm drinking three times the average. People like Kevin Love, he was on the Cleveland Cavaliers, and maybe he still is. I don't follow teams that aren't that people don't tell me about, but he drinks 2 gallons of water a day. But he's also 6'8". He's 6'7", 6'8", and he's in the NBA, right? He's doing intense workouts every day. But 2 gallons.
Dang.
That's a lot of water.
I feel like I'm behind on my water gain. Like,
And
we try to do this challenge, I could overdose. You're gonna be ready to handle that. Me, I'm gonna.
Right, you may overdose. Maybe we'll start with 40 ounces.
I can do that. That sounds more acceptable.
Yeah, and so like I was just thinking about this. How many people drink 180 ounces per day and sleep on the floor? Am I the only one?
We had this discussion
I know.
last time.
That was just for the bed. It was just for the bed, though, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There's got to be some other people that sleep on the floor. There's got to be some other people that drink, let's just say, more than a gallon a day.
I don't know. That's a good question. There's got to be some overlap somewhere. I feel like somebody's made that choice.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many people out there. There's got to be one person
That's
who
like
decided.
Me.
Yeah.
What about people that sleep on the floor, drink over a gallon of water a day, and don't drink milk?
That's going to be a difficult one to find there.
Yeah, dude.
But I bet you maybe there's 5 people other than yourself who do that.
Yeah, and I wonder, based on just those 3 attributes, I wonder how likely it is that I would mesh well and maybe even like become friends with people that have these attributes. Like, either you're doing something reckless or you're doing something that's ill-advised, and that may or may not mean that I want to be around you. It just depends on what kind of reckless choices you're making. Or I may like them, or I may not like people that are like me, which is interesting.
What if the person that you met was a radical, like, nobody's going to sleep in the beds, nobody's going to drink the milk, everyone's going to drink this minimal amount of water, we are going to go and force people to do this. If they don't, we'll throw them into the ocean. What if you met that person? Then it's like, it's a whole nother ball game, because then you're like, whoa, that's not what I'm a part of, you know? It becomes a different thing.
Well, I'm not going to, like, number one, you'd be really tired if you threw all those people in the ocean.
It would take a lot of effort.
Because there's like, even if it was mandatory, it would be interesting if that like drinking water was something that was mandatory. That would probably make a lot more people healthy, and that would be interesting on how that would affect just general happiness. But I don't believe you should force people to do stuff. I think it's within each individual person, if they want to make choices that are going to lead to better outcomes for themselves, that they'll want to do these things. And it's likely that if they're hanging around people that are doing stuff like this, it's easier to adopt those sort of things. But yeah, I wouldn't be friends with someone that's trying to force everybody to be like them, because if there was everybody that thought the same thing and did the same thing, we would, number one, it wouldn't be an exciting way to travel through life, is to just have everybody do the same thing. But also, it's not practical, because as we said before, if we're missing some aspect of information on how the world works and everybody does the same thing, then there's no room for growth. So it's kind of interesting, like, on the one hand, you want people to adopt these healthy things, but they're only healthy based on our perception of how the world works. And like I can say with a high degree of certainty, based on my personal experience, that drinking over 50 ounces a day, which is like, it's crazy that people don't drink more than 50 ounces a day. I can say based on my personal experience that I know that this would be a benefit to a lot of people, but in some way I may be lacking some information. So if somebody was going crazy, I'd be like, well, good for you, but let's make sure that you're not trying to force people to do something without doing your due diligence and kind of thinking about kind of the repercussions of your actions.
What if he disagrees? What if he he somehow manages to get elected under like a false name, and you're like trying to tell everybody, you're like, no, he's gonna start some shit. And then what if he arrests me because he's like, no more milk, bruh. And he comes into my house and he like takes all my milk. And that's he's against coffee too. He takes the coffee and I'm like, oh god. And I go to the black market and then he arrests me. He throws me in a camp. Like,
dude.
what?
Okay, sorry. Just we're trying not to be racial on the show. We're trying not to say, offensive things on here. So what kind of market was it?
It was a market that you buy things that you can't buy at a regular market.
What if this said market got offended because you were calling the traditional market a regular market?
It's a market where you can buy things that you can't normally buy.
Okay, great.
Yeah, now we're just like obliviously being like, you can't normally buy these things we're assuming some places, but we don't really know what places. It could be any place if they choose to not sell that thing.
Yeah, okay.
But here they have it.
Sure.
Which is their choice and their decision, which is fine.
Okay, so this guy outlaws coffee, milk, and
beds.
And he comes in and steals them out of your house.
And then he just sends his crew in.
And wait, are you saying he was selling them on the non-traditional market, or?
No, people that's where they have to get their stuff from now
and then
if they want.
Yeah, if they outlaw, it's kind of like prohibition. Yeah, I mean, if people wanted to do it, they would do it. It would be, especially kind of for housing livestock that produce milk, like cows and stuff. I think that'd be hard. People could start growing their own coffee, and for sure they could make their own beds. They probably wouldn't be. They couldn't make their own sleep number bed, but they could make sleep on the couch, or maybe they have a futon that looks a lot like a regular couch, and so the crew didn't take it.
What if they monitor you, like when you're sleeping? They come in through the window and they're like, "Hey, buddy, you sleeping on the couch tonight, bro?" And they come in and they take you away.
And we'll be right back.
And we're back.
Yeah, if they came and took you away, then you would have to face the consequences because that's the rules of the land. And one thing that I kind of am questioning is, why do you think these goons are saying "bruh" so much?
I don't know.
They
just like to say it. They just do. For some reason.
There's something about these people, these radical people, that makes you think that they would say "bruh." That's interesting.
I don't think all of them would say "bruh."
But you even at the beginning you were saying that their leader would say "bruh." They'd be like, "Give me that coffee, bruh."
Yeah, maybe he says it, and people then are like, "Okay, this is where the organization is going."
Mm-hmm.
They're a part of like the no bed, the no bedtime coffee, milk, everything that's like this party.
Yeah.
And they come in and they say. And he just uses the word "bruh" because whenever somebody does something that he doesn't like, he's like "bruh," and then he comes in and he just.
So there's two different bruhs
you.
though. There's like saying you're like your homie bruh, and then there's like something that happens that you don't like, and then there's like that meme of the going bruh.
That's what I imagined was the bruh. Like he just kind of just whenever you do something wrong in this society, just the bruh sound effect switches on, and he appears in your house, and he's like. Nope.
So, in this, fabricated but not so hard to believe future, people must have voted for this. So it must have gotten to a certain point where people didn't like all these things, right?
What if he hid his intentions? Like he was like, "Listen, we're gonna reform the system to be better. We're going to make sure that from now on the animals are going to be raised properly, and we're going to make sure that we're growing the right amount of coffee, not limiting the market necessarily, but growing the right amount, and beds, will be made sure to be more healthy for humans because some people don't have nice beds, and I think everyone should have a nice bed. And then he gets into office and he's like, no beds. That's the best decision for you. No milk at all, and no coffee.
Okay, so let's just be clear here to start out with. I'm not against coffee in the way that I'm against milk. Okay.
Okay.
And
But this guy, that's his, his decision.
And I'm also okay with people sleeping in beds. I just think that, especially on the waterfront, and mainly water and milk and kind of milk products. I don't know. I think that if that was part of kind of what people talked about more, then maybe we would have healthier lives. So for this guy, if he's running the country and he's telling people you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, it's possible to impeach somebody for doing something that they weren't supposed to be doing.
He's completely reformed the government.
That means that guy is so good at strategy. He's so proficient at navigating through their bureaucracy that, like, you got to give it to him. I'm not even gonna fight this, bro. And I wouldn't even be arrested, so I'd be fine.
Yeah, I know. You're pretty lucky on that front. I mean, for me, it's going to be a pretty terrible time. I'd be impressed, given I'd be like, oh my God, what's happening with the Senate? The Senate would be like, we like him.
Yeah.
And, and there'd be people in the Senate who are like, what are you talking about? And then, like, bro would come in and they'd just
maybe part of his strategy is kind of hijacking meme culture. I mean, you definitely got to think that that's going to be, not that they're going to have all these kind of things outlawed, but people got to start to take advantage of memes for their political campaigns. And, like, I'm just going to be honest, I don't, like, know anything about politics. Like I had a government class in high school, but I don't know anything about it. I just know that anytime I've been in a position of any amount of power, then there would be things that I would not tell the people, whoever I was with, whether if I was like a teacher in a classroom or I was running some sort of organization, then there would always be something that I wouldn't be able to explain to somebody, or it wasn't relevant to them. And so, like, if I have to imagine being a governing body, and there's a lot of, like, checks and balances, right? But if there's 1,000 people, and then, like, even more so, like 10 or 12 people that are in charge of hundreds of millions of people, that it would be really hard for me to believe that what they were sharing and what they were talking about would contain all the information that they had. And it's really complex because they have to have a strong military, and they have to protect themselves against other governments, and you don't know what kind of things that they have to do to provide us safety in this country. And some of that may or may not be ethical based on what we believe as American citizens. So I would find it hard to believe that all of what it takes to govern this country and other countries is being displayed publicly. And then if that's the case, that we're not getting all the information, then how can we make an educated decision, or how can we even believe that what we're being told is actually happening? And how can we even believe that our choices on an individual level, specifically talking about politics, or like believing that our beliefs are being adequately represented by voting? And I'm not saying you shouldn't vote. I'm just saying that I I don't believe it means as much as some people believe that it means.
Yeah, I'm a little bit, I guess, of a pessimist when it comes to
Okay.
like.
I'm just being realistic. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
I'm being a pessimist
Well-
because there's the facts and then there's your interpretation of the facts, right? So it'd be like, I believe these things, and then you could be a pessimist about that, or you could take that in any direction. But to me, I'm just stating the facts, right?
Yeah,
But go on.
yeah. I completely agree with what you said. I think even more so, like, for me, like, I think that's a really realistic, like, outlook that you have. But then I think sometimes I can, and this isn't a good thing, like, but I sometimes am a super big pessimist when it comes to, like, just the current state of, like, the world and, like, politics and, like, people are getting divided. They see the same information on social media and that just kind of reaffirms what they think, and then they start hating other people, and you have governments that don't really want to change because they're afraid of losing their power or possibly shifting power in a different direction, or losing stability is another fear. I think some are in their mind like a moral one where they're like, what if this happens during the transition? Or what if we're here to make sure that the world doesn't devolve into this? And other people are saying, but we need change because right now we're going in a direction that's super, like, downhill. It's going to come to a stop if we don't at least make small changes now. But I just don't think it's happening. And I don't think, I agree with what you said where I don't think that people have as much. People will, like, say things, but ultimately it's just something that was said into the void. It feels like to me.
Yeah, are you talking about individuals?
Yeah, like in individuals, like, power is kind of. I don't think it's as strong as some people believe. I believe it's important to vote because collectively there can be a difference that's made, but there's also, like, many different things that are added on to the vote. Like, you have the Electoral College, you have basically a state just giving all their electorates. So you as the individual aren't exactly as important anymore.
Like, it doesn't matter who we vote for president in this state because our state is going to be blue, and then all of the votes, I think it's 12, maybe there's 12 districts, there's going to be 12 electoral college votes for Joe Biden, right? So it's like, I wonder if that didn't exist, how many more or less people would vote and how that would affect kind of the popular vote. Because we look at the popular vote, but it's not really the popular vote if you live in a non-swing state, right?
Yeah, those states have a lot of power in elections. That's why they follow.
Yeah, and then they'll cater specifically to those states, and then it's not like they'll do all of their press and they'll have a lot of rallies there, and they'll make sure to spend a lot of their money on those areas because these few amount of states, I'm pretty sure it's like less than 15 states, that is what causes the outcome of the election, and then that's not really taking into account what's going on across the country. And like maybe we don't have a lot of power as an individual, and maybe like this is the way it needs to be for us to continue to be a country. And I'm not saying that that's going to be the best thing for everybody else, as if we're always, the United States and whatever. But maybe that's the only way for this to be a country that functions, is for us to have this amount of power and for them to only give a part of the truth about what's going on behind the closed doors of, running the country and foreign affairs and what it's really like to go and be the president and to learn about all of the kind of the secrets of what's going on, right? Because it's not like we can guarantee they're not telling us something. I just think that's the stuff that they're not telling us is a lot larger. And maybe it just needs to be that way for it to function this way. Like I'm not really sure, just because I think people could come into that and say like, I deserve to know everything. Well, there's two things about that. Number one is, if you deserve to know that, then what are you going to do with that information? Is it just going to cause a crisis so large that it's going to dismantle everything. And then also, like, people are so they believe so much that they know what's right, that they are speaking about who these people, these people who are quote unquote running the country. I don't know actually how it works, like if the president is actually doing what the president does, or if there's a group of people that are making decisions. I actually don't know how like the actual structure of the government works. I know what we're being told about it, but people talk about things as if they are capable of, number one, being in these positions, right? Like they're talking as if they believe that they'd be able to do the job that these people are doing. They're so critical of what this person is doing. But if you really have to think about, like, number one, we don't know what it takes to do this job. And then on top of that, we probably wouldn't be capable of handling the amount of stress that it takes to be a figure that the entire globe looks to and criticizes, and somebody that has to be the face of an entire country, of the most powerful country or group of people to ever exist. Like, how can we be so critical when we couldn't even be that? We couldn't be that person.
Yeah, I definitely I think people often do think a little too, I don't want to say highly of themselves, but they think that somehow what they think or what they know is 100% right. And they think that anyone who does something differently is 100% wrong. And I definitely think that happens a lot with government, but I think also sometimes people don't question government enough. Because I think what happens is sometimes we vote the same people in over and over again, and we vote the same party in over and over again. And I think people just accept, like, well, I don't know, that guy probably knows what he's doing. And I think to a point we definitely don't know exactly what the job entails, which I think is a huge problem as well, that we don't really have more knowledge, and that there aren't more people that we are willing to trust and give them a chance to change things, like different parties, different types of people to put into these positions. But at the same time, I think people never think, am I wrong? Like, what about my assumptions could possibly be wrong? And they're not willing to examine themselves and say, I have flaws, I'm not always right. The person who's in office has flaws, they can't possibly be always right. And I should question myself and them. And if I inherently think what this person's doing is wrong, I should vote them out and vote somebody else in, even if they're a part of my same party, a part of my same ideology, whatever it is. I need to be willing to find somebody that I honestly agree with. And if that's not with either party, or if maybe that is somebody within that party, but it's not the ideal person, that you gotta you gotta go with what you want to do or what you believe, and look at that belief and be willing to say, am I wrong? What can I do to try and educate myself and still accept the fact that maybe I'm not 100% correct, but just try the best that you can to absorb what knowledge you can, accept that maybe you're wrong about the beliefs that you have, but go forward and try to choose, because ultimately in an election you can't, like, people can't just, they don't have time to just run the government, so you have to choose somebody and just try your best, I guess, to make moral decisions.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying. And when it comes down to it, there's a lot of subtle things that bleed into why people are blaming something outside of themselves. A lot of times in today's climate is the president, right? They believe that something that somebody else is doing is making them feel a certain way, right? And so, like, if we're, like, it may be challenging to accept that maybe you have control of how you're feeling, it's a lot easier to say somebody else is doing it, and therefore you have no control over it. That's a big. It can be a big step for people to take, because we're living in a world that requires you to believe you're right to be successful and to kind of get into a position where you can secure a spot of just having security and safety for yourself and for your family, right? So like, this isn't the political system setting this up. This is kind of like, it's all meshed together, but this is kind of like the social system of like people speaking with conviction and talking about their ideas as fact. That's part of the foundation of how we communicate here. And so kind of a byproduct of that is, if everybody's right, and there's many people that think outside of the kind of this really generic basic thing that I'm saying, but if you're always thinking that you're right in order to succeed, then you're less likely to think that something you're doing could be changed, and therefore you think of something outside of yourself to fulfill this thing where something's clearly off. You're definitely feeling some way. You're upset about something, or something's not going right in your life, and then you're blaming an outside force because part of the foundation of who you are is based on you believing that you're right. And so that's not leading to any internal change because you're blaming things outside, and that there will always be something. Even if you get a new president, there will always be something. It may drop from being the president, but then it may be your boss or your teacher, or it may be like one of your kids, or like there will always be something unless you figure out, hey, I need to change something here.
Yeah, I agree. I think people need to, because people do that a lot. They're afraid to blame themselves, so they go off and they blame somebody else.
Sorry, we're gonna have to be right back.
Oh, out of time.
I don't think that I started the timer last time.
Did the camera die?
No, it didn't.
Oh, nice. Okay,
Thankfully,
that's good.
That was a great segment.
That was a good segment.
And if you can't remember, then they would jump right back in.
We can always like leave some of these like cuts in too. I feel like some of them are like kind of interesting sometimes.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree.
Like in the first episode, I thought it was kind of funny. The cuts in between had some good bits in there.
Yeah, definitely this one we'll probably leave in. All right.
All right, and we're back. No need to snap. I guess there wasn't a snap on the last one, but
Did I not snap on the last
I
one?
don't think so. I think you were so worried about the camera being off. It
Yeah,
was just
yeah.
like yeah.
That's fine. So yeah, I was talking about how seriously people have issues in their lives and they're blaming outside forces for them.
Yeah, I think people are too afraid to blame themselves. It's like a fear factor.
I wouldn't say blame, because language matters and then language doesn't. But like, I think if you are blaming yourself, then it's gonna be really hard to. It's like that's like a combative word, right?
Or to accept that you might have made a mistake, or you might have certain habits in your life that are causing effects that you don't like. But rather than look at yourself and turn the spotlight onto yourself, you try to shine it elsewhere because it's a lot easier to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I definitely have had those moments where I'll be thinking about something and I'll just be like, and I won't want to focus too much on me, because sometimes that can be like it can be almost like an ugly subject, right? Because like you really have to dig deep into what you are doing, and it's your own conscious mind analyzing your own mind, which like for a brain to really like, I think, judge itself and kind of break down what it's doing, it's difficult. It definitely like I feel it's difficult.
Yeah, and so again, that's a way that you're describing it with a certain language, and I wouldn't necessarily say it in that way, but I get the sentiment of what you're saying of like, there's this incredibly nuanced thing that's going inside of your head and in experiences that you are having, and to start to look at this super complicated thing instead of the very straightforward way that you kind of will analyze your exterior life, going from the X's and O's straightforward, this person is doing this thing, if you're going from that to a very complicated inner kind of orientation, or like thinking about what's going on mentally for you, figuring out what your actual intentions are, that can be a it will, number one, it's a really important switch to flip in order to have a fulfilling life, but also it's not a traditional thing, and it's also not not many people can to help you or to train you to do that. And so like people have a challenging time doing that because it's not a straightforward thing to do. So I mean, I totally get you on that. I just wouldn't say it's a difficult thing, because as soon as you say it's a difficult thing, then it's a difficult thing.
Yeah, maybe that was not the best choice of words for that. I think it's something that can be, and I don't want to say challenging because I can't pretend to assume what's challenging for another person. I'm saying for me, sometimes it feels like a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll be feeling a certain feeling, like maybe you're like sad or a little bit disappointed that day, right? And you try to basically look deep inside and try to get like a better perspective as to why you're feeling that way. And it can be challenging because doing that, I think we talked about this before too, you can go immediately to like a distraction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And push it in the back.
Sure.
But trying to actually look at the problem and analyze it is sometimes really difficult, because you actually have to look at the problem and consume part of that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't always pleasant.
Sure.
To get through it.
That is something that you could maybe, number one, maybe it wouldn't always be that way. Like saying like you're feeling things that are unpleasant. Well, like unpleasant, that's a perspective on like just something that's just happening. It's like your point of view of this thing is uncomfortable to go through. Most people probably would say that that's uncomfortable, but that doesn't necessarily have to be your experience if you have like a broader awareness of this sort of thing is going to kind of free me up from having these kind of these periods of my life where I don't know why I'm not feeling great about things, but this thing is happening and it's in a reoccurring subject. Like this difficult period you're saying, or something that's uncomfortable, really is that's just the process of it. And so kind of your interpretation of that will affect what actions you take throughout that process. I had another point on this. What were you talking about? It's difficult to
focus on, I guess, why you're feeling a certain way, right?
Yeah.
And if it's a negative feeling that you're having, getting to the root of it and solving that problem by really analyze what you're doing in your life, perhaps events that happened in the past, how certain situations unfolded, right? And thinking about that and really solving them, it can be uncomfortable. And I think it's really easy, at least, to push those things to the back and get distracted with something else, because solving them, it's a difficult
Okay, sure.
thing to do, or can be.
So, sometimes the what people are calling a challenge is the fact that it requires an extreme amount of attention to detail. It requires you to really be present and focused on a single thing, which that requires training in itself. Like, you can train yourself to focus on individual things for long periods of time, and in one way that's not helping you to be successful in today's landscape if things are always, switching around and flipping back and forth. But I think that's like a really, really important tool, is to be able to have an attention to detail and to focus intently on one thing, and specifically on what this process that's going on in your mind and in your body, if we're talking about emotions. And then like once you're like accepting that you're gonna have to, or you're accepting of what's going on, a lot of times just the acceptance of what's going on ends up being the thing that liberates you from that. And it's to me, it's not always a cognitive thing where you're going through like, this is what's happening, I need to do this, I can't believe I believe this. Sometimes just being like, wow, I feel angry right now, I'm feeling sad. Sometimes to me that's it. Sometimes to me it's not always you need to do something about it.
I mean, I guess I'm more so talking about just embracing the emotion as well. There's not always a problem that can be fixed. Sometimes you just have the feeling, but really going through the full wave of the emotion, I think, is easy to suppress sometimes, because it is one of those uncomfortable things to do.
Yeah, and to me it's only uncomfortable because we don't have the skill of processing it. That's the only reason it would be uncomfortable.
Yeah. I think sometimes I embrace it more so because I don't for a long period of time, like,
and then it becomes too much, and it becomes too much, and then you just collapse.
And then you're overwhelmed, and then it's
right.
too
So the thing that I end up doing in those circumstances is, okay, I'm recognizing that I'm feeling this and I don't know what to do. And then I tell my brain, I'm ready to learn what to do in these situations, because I will not allow this to continually happen. And then my brain does it, dude. Then I really start to question what's going on. How is this happening? What could I try differently here? And then it's like a process where you end up teaching yourself how to go through this, because it's number one, it's an individual thing, and then also how would somebody teach you how to do that? They like, I don't know. It's a majority of this, and just in life in general, is an individual thing. We need groups of people, we need people to teach us, but they can't hop inside of your mind and figure out how this process works for you. It's not possible. Yeah.
I mean, there's guidance.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to like a therapist, there's counselors, they exist for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
But none of them can actually solve all your problems with like a snap of their fingers. It takes the person who's going there to work through their problems themselves, because nobody else is going to do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
No one can like reach their hand into your brain and just
it's the counselor or therapist's job to work with you, and they have a skill set of helping people identify these things that are happening, and they can help these people create a roadmap of what that they would like to do. But it's 100% on the individual, whether they're going into sessions with people or not. It's 100% on the individual. And to me, I have gone to counseling. That like, I knew I wanted to do it for years, but like, there's something inside of my head that was like, having to accept that there was something wrong with me, like we were talking about before, in order to receive help from somebody. And at the end of the day, it's not like somebody's helping you. It's someone's working with you, and I had a great experience working with this counselor, and yeah, it like you said before, it was too much stuff built up, and my brain could not take it anymore. My body couldn't take it anymore, and I had to go see someone immediately, basically. Like, it's just like, okay, this can't happen anymore.
Yeah. I've thought about just for like, you know, to experience it, going and seeing like a counselor, because I think it can help a lot, especially like when there's certain barriers that seem really intimidating to overcome on your own, you know? And sometimes it really makes the difference if you have somebody there who can work with you to, you know, climb over some of them.
Yeah, and so something specifically about that is like definitely working with somebody who what they think about is how to work with people on how to overcome these things. Something that would be super important for somebody who's thinking about it or going to counseling is figuring out, what do you really want to get out of it, and what kind of relationship do you want to have with this person, and what kind of skills are they going to need for you to be successful in there? Because sometimes we're not always aware of what we're trying to get out of it, and it's really helpful to go in there and to be vocal about what kind of things you're looking for in that person, because unless we communicate specifically with somebody in extreme detail of what we would like them to do, and continually update that as they start to act as the relationship grows, unless you're explaining it in an intense detail of what your needs are and what you would like, what would fulfill your needs, unless you're saying that constantly, then you're not going to get the most out of it. And that's true for any relationship, but specifically if you're talking about really important details and really even big picture stuff about your life, I think it's really important to be super clear. And sometimes that's hard because like we don't always know what we're trying to get out of it, or we don't know always what we want, but it's a continual process of having an experience, figuring out what your response to that is, figuring out what worked for you and what didn't, and then kind of resetting and then setting and then kind of moving forward and being communicating what your needs are.
Definitely. I think there's no such thing as somebody who is quote unquote just completely perfect or has it all together, right? I don't think there's such thing as somebody who's there, because it's a constant working process and people slowly adapt to different things as their life continues. I think trying to think of the human brain as something that can just eventually be perfected, I think is a really big mistake that people can make, and it makes them think that there's something wrong with them and they have to get to this point where it's going to just be perfect for the rest of their life. They're not going to have any issues. I think people do that a lot, and I think it's important to remember that nobody's perfect, and you can solve problems, but you're always going to have to, you know, adapt and change, and it's a lifelong process.
Yeah, and one thing about that is 100% agree that it's a lifelong process, but I think there's a way to orient yourself where if you're aware that this is the way that the process works, then you will be inviting these times where when your ability is falling short, and you're excited about how you're going to how this is going to unfold and how you're going to respond to these new circumstances. Because if we were aware of all the things that were not fulfilling us at one time, we wouldn't be able to process them individually. And so as long as we're continually growing, then we have to, like, I believe it's possible to be appreciating every part of the kind of just the human experience. Because, I mean, that's ideally where I would like to be, is to be enjoying dead ends and enjoying challenging relationships, because like just taking responsibility for relationships that are working and not working. Like if it is working, taking responsibility for that, and accepting the work that you've put in, and then just over time, just enjoying the whole thing, even if you have an injury, or somebody does something that's not nice, or somebody in the family dies. Like the only thing that's certain is that things like that are going to happen. So that's, I think, what the goal is.
Yeah.
Cool. And I think we'll wrap it up right there. I think that was I enjoyed that. I'm continually enjoying doing this, and there's something about being on here and whatever this format is like being super open and vocal about my ideas, and learning more about you and about myself. And I think this is great. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. It kind of
got serious.
Maybe like at first I thought this was going to be more of a comedy thing, and maybe it is, but we'll kind of see how this thing ends up developing. Well, that will wrap it up for the 4th episode of Not Your Cousin's Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Instagram. Here's my website.
Oh, wait, we forgot about the sponsor.
Oh, God.
We can interject it in later.
Yeah,
we'll put it in
toss
post.
it in.
We'll put it in post. Okay.
Great.
All right.
So thank you so much for listening. Where do they find you?
Steel Strings, SoundCloud, and YouTube.
What happens if they friend you on Facebook?
No, I won't accept. Maybe Instagram later, but I'm sorry. Facebook is for family and friends. I'm not saying they're not my friends. I'm saying
people you know.
I don't. Yeah, people that I've met in person are like for Facebook.
There
if I
you
was
go.
to make like an Instagram or a Twitter, then it's like a different vibe. Then it's like, oh, like everyone's welcome.
Mm-hmm.
That's more of like, it'd be weird. Like then they're looking through all my family photos, and
Sure.
they see that a picture of me in like my underwear as a kid. It's like, what's going on here? I can't. Not now. Just not now. Maybe later.
All right, signing off, guys. Thanks so much for listening.
See you later.